Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the story time. I'm going to tell two little stories today. One is about the time where I wrecked my motorcycle, and the second is when I was at a Christmas show and I busted my whole knee open and you could see the bones and stuff. It was nasty. Anyway, but first, we hit, I think, 300 subscribers at the making of this video, and the last few videos have gotten a hefty amount of views. I wanted to say thank you for subscribing and watching, stuff like that. Anyway, moving on to the stories. So the first, it's 2 stories, because I've wrecked my bike twice. Alright, so the first time, this was in I think 2018 or 17. I was still in high school, and this was the first bike I had. It was a Yamaha 950, I believe so, and it was the first bike I got. And I'm not the tallest man around, and this bike was sort of like the cross between a dirt bike and a sports bike. So it was pretty high up off the ground. Like, whenever I was sitting on it, in order for me to touch the ground, I had to be on my tippy toes. That was a pretty big problem, because I could not, I'd fall over every now and again. But anyway, so I was riding the bike to school one day, and whenever I pulled up into the parking lot, now this was like the third time that I had ever rode the motorcycle, okay? So whenever I pulled up into the parking lot, I got into a parking space, and I thought I put it in neutral, but I didn't. And I had let go of the clutch, and the bike shot forward. I had went over the little concrete, what are they called? Like sections off each parking spot. And I had ramped over it, and I went into the ditch on the other side. But I didn't let go of the bike, and I pulled down on the throttle. So I ended up going through the ditch, up into the library parking lot, and then back up onto the road. Never fell over or anything like that. But then I pulled back around. I got back into the parking lot, and I put it in neutral and turned the bike off. But that was the first time I wrecked, but not really wrecked. But that was the first little bad thing that happened on a motorcycle. Anyway, the second time was about 3 days ago. Now, this is my third bike. I had the Yamaha 950, but it was too tall, so I ended up getting a Harley Davidson Street Bob, which is a really, really nice bike. Rides really smooth and all that. But me and my dad, we ended up trading both of our bikes in, which were roughly the same, to get a Street Glide that has, like the radio and the interface and all that. So it's just more comfortable to ride, and it has a cruise control. And I tell you, a cruise control on a bike is the best thing you could ever have. So anyway, this is the new bike. Then we've had it for about, say, 2 weeks, and when we got it, we had 7 miles on it. And me alone, I have worked it up to 400 miles in the past week, because it's just so fun to ride. Anyway, so I was riding it about 2 days ago, and I was heading down the highway, and I pulled into this little restaurant off the highway, and I was trying to avoid all the loose gravel, because that's really dangerous, and my back tire ended up hitting some mud, and the wheel began to spin, and the bike slipped over, and when the bike fell over, it has these little crash bars on the side, and they dug into the ground, so it made the bike stop, but I kept going forward, and it flung me off the bike, and did a little combat roll. I landed on my shoulder and then just rolled forward. I was pretty much okay, other than a big old bruise I had on my arm. And I got some bruises on my thighs. But other than that, I was roughly fine. The bike was completely okay. I mean, those things are meant to take a little bit of a beating. Well, I got the crash bars on them. My my mom and sister saw everything happen. You know, I was laying on the ground. I was like, "Ooh, that don't feel too good." And they were just standing over there watching me. I didn't rush over anything. And my sister walks over to me and she said, "You okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And then my sister helped me pick the bike up. Cranked it up. And I started to head over to the... I headed into town to go to the car wash so I could power wash all the mud off the bike. But yeah, you know, a little bit before that happened, as I was heading down the highway, there was a little turtle on the side of the road. Well, not on the side of the road. He was in the middle of the highway. So I pulled over on the side of the highway and I grabbed a turtle. And I brought it all the way over to the other side of the highway. And, you know, I was like, hey, that's some good karma for the day. And then as I made my way back around to go turn into the restaurant, I wrecked the bike. I was like, man, maybe that turtle was bad. It gave me bad luck or something. It kind of sucked. But I'm pretty much fine and all that. Alright, so that's it for the bike stories. Moving on to time that busted me leg open. So this happened about, I'd say when I was about 9 or 10, 11 or 12, something like that. One of those ages. And this was around the time of, if you're from Louisiana, the Natchitoches Christmas lights, where they had this like water bank and stuff and this little street, and they decorate it with a bunch of Christmas lights, you know, like designs and all that stuff. And they have like stalls and stuff where they're selling food and drinks and all that. And on the, it's kind of on, I guess you could say maybe, I don't know if it's called a levee. Is that what Natchitoches is on? It's a levee? Yeah. So it's on a levee, and it goes the road, a good bit of a grass area, and then it just drops straight down to where it's like 15 feet drop, and at the end is like concrete, and they got like rocks for decoration and stuff, and that's where they were holding like the stalls where you could buy food, souvenirs, and all that stuff. Well, we were parked on the side of the road because we were watching I think it was a parade, maybe. Parade was going by on the road, so we were watching that, and these kids were playing football on the side. So I went over and I was gonna play with them, and you know, we played for about like 10-15 minutes, give or take. You know, we're playing stuff, and one of the kids had pushed me because I had the ball. He pushed me, and I ended up, he pushed me a little too hard, well, a little too close to the edge, and he pushed me off the side of the levee, and it pretty much goes straight down. So I fell, you know, the 15 feet, and at the bottom of the levee, you know, the rocks that they would use for decoration, one of the rocks had a point on it, and my knee had landed directly on that sharp point, and it had opened a little bit. It was probably about that big, right on my kneecap. And, you know, I was a kid. I was like, ooh, that don't feel too good. And And one of the workers who was right next door, he was one of the stall workers. He picked me up off the ground. And when he picked me up, I don't think he knew that my knee had gotten hit like that. So when he picked me up, my knee kind of like draped over his arm, and it ended up opening the hole even more to where it stretched across the entirety of my knee. And so it's like, say this is like my knee. It started out like right here, and it was just like a hole about this big. And then when he picked me up and it draped over his arm, it opened up to the whole corners of my knee. Anyway, so my cousin, who was down there at the time, she saw me fall. She ran down there. She came and she picked me up, and she started running to go find my mother. But while she was running, my leg was bouncing up and down on her arm, the way she was holding me. I don't know what this position is called. She was cradling me. Yeah. So as my knee was bouncing up and down, it continued to tear more and more down to the sides of my... It went farther down the sides of my knee. And it had started to open up. So it started out as a hole, and then it stretched out. And then as she started running, it started to open up and cover my whole knee. You could see my kneecap, but it wasn't, the kneecap wasn't broken or anything like that. But you could see my kneecap, and it was bleeding a lot. Anyway, so we end up finding my mom. My mom calls an ambulance. The ambulance comes and picks me up, and they take me to the hospital. While I'm in the emergency room, I think is where I was, the instant care unit, the doctor comes in. I had sat in the ICU for about, I'm going to say 30 to 45 minutes before anyone actually came in to see me. I don't know if it wasn't like, they were like, oh, it's not that big a deal, whatever. But it was a while, just sitting there with a big old, I didn't even have a knee at that point. So, I was crying at the beginning, but by the time I'd gotten to the hospital, I'd calmed down and I wasn't crying anymore. The adrenaline's shock and stuff had made me, not feel the pain really any. And then eventually when the doctor did come in, they cut the leg off of my pants. And, they were looking at it and stuff, and they had told me that the kneecap was fine. It hadn't broken or shattered or anything like that. But they got to stitch it up, and before they could stitch it up, they took a syringe, really big needle on it. I don't really care for needles that much. I'm not like afraid of them or anything, because I take needles every day. Because I'm a diabetic, so needles are no problem. But it's a little different from whenever you're injecting yourself with stuff than it is whenever you have an open wound and they take this needle and they stick it in the wound they put it at so it's opened up like this. They took the needle, they angled it, and they put it on this end at 3 points, and then they flipped it around and then put it at 3 points on the other side. So they were numbing up both sides of the wound. And then they had to put it in the middle of it to numb that up too. And before they could stitch it up, they had to make sure there was no rocks or dirt or anything like that in the wound. So they had tweezers, and they were picking around in my knee looking to see if anything was in there. It turned out there was no rocks in there, so they had spent about 5 minutes digging around in my knee to see if there was anything in there. He said at one point he was knocking against my kneecap. It's nasty if you think about it. And so from that point on, he stitched up my knee. I ended up getting 13 stitches. And 13 stitches. And then we left that night after I got the stitches. But the pain didn't really hit me until after we immediately left the hospital, because the pain meds had worn off, the pain that they injected me, but they gave me pills to take, and I'd taken a pill before I left, but it hadn't kicked in yet. And the pain that came after I left, ooh, that was rough. I just wanted to get rid of the leg, man. It was bad. And I can take a pretty good amount of pain, but that was rough. And then we got home, and it takes about 3, 4, 5 weeks for a scar to heal. And this one, it hadn't healed properly all the way. I still have the scar on my knee. If you can see, it's kind of like in the light, but it's like right here. And this thing is stuck around for almost 9 years. And it's giving me a lot of knee problems because all the scar tissue in there, because it didn't heal properly, because when I went to the hospital to get it checked up after, I think, 3 weeks, the doctor that looked at it took my stitches out. It hadn't completely healed or anything like that, just took the stitches out. So my mom, who is a RN, registered nurse, saw that wasn't healed properly all the way. So she took liquid skin stuff and some sutures. She sutured it up just a little bit at points, like it was like one. So on the cut, it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She sutured it up, and then she put the liquid skin over it, and those were the ones that dissolve in your skin. But since he had taken it out, it had opened back up, and it didn't heal properly. So there's a lot of scar tissue in this knee, and whenever I move it, I can feel my kneecap pop in and out of place, and it will move, and I can move my kneecap all the way over to one side of my leg and all the way over to the other side, because it's like it didn't heal properly, so it didn't reattach properly, I guess. I don't quite know. I'm not a doctor. And it feels like there's if I put my hand on my knee and I move it, it kind of sounds like my knee is groaning at me. Just weird. But, whoever that dude was that pushed me down that hill, I find you. Nah. Yeah, that's about it for that story. So, if you like the video, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for 300 subscribers. And next video will be me and a friend, actually. So it'll be do a double. I'll tell you a story about both of us. A story with both of us in it. Yep. Catch you in the next one.